As you could see, my 2-speed gearbox got kind of broken. It didn't work correctly. At the highest speed it started making a lot of noise, and the car wouldn't move, and I had to switch it to the lowest speed to make the car move. So I had to disassemble it and to see what's going on with the gearbox. As I drive this car in water, the debris gets inside of the box, water gets inside of the box. So one of the first things to look at is if there's any rust and if the rust is blocking anything. So I disassembled this gearbox. It's easy. You have only 4 screws. So you open the box and you see a lot of gears. All the gears here are plastic, so there's not much to rust. Only the axles of the gears could get rust, and the lever that controls the gearbox can get rust. A lot of rust was blocking this hole in the case, and the lever wouldn't move well. What I had to do is to move it a little bit to let the rust move out of the way in the hole, and apply some lubricant inside, which is usually what I use is WD-40. Another thing what I noticed is that the electrical motor had some resistance inside due to rust. As you can see, it's rusty, and I had to apply some WD-40 lubricant again inside, so it started moving freely. As you can see, you don't really know the state of the electrical motor if the car is working, but once you release the mechanism and see how the axis of the electrical motor is moving, then you can see if there's really a lot of rust inside. Another problem that's happening is that the spring becomes rusty and it's not exerting enough force on the lever. So there is a position of the lever when it goes from the lower and the high speed, and when it's in the middle, the gears don't get engaged. So this rusty spring may not function well. You need to get a new one, and it's easy to get. Just pick up any pen like this with the spring mechanism, take out the spring out of it, and it fits perfectly well into this. If after cleaning everything and putting everything back you still have problems with the gearbox, it's making sounds, and when, for example, a car gets into a more difficult terrain and the car stops moving, then the problem is with the engaging gear inside of the gearbox, and you'll have to take it out. The engaging mechanism is under this gear. You have to remove it, and there is a wheel. Which is a black one, this one. So after you remove it, you will have to sand it a little bit. The teeth, there are teeth that with time get worn out. They become too slippery, and you need to sand them a little bit. Also, the angle of the teeth changes. The edges of the teeth has to be 90 degrees to the surface, but with time they get worn out. So this part gets worn out, so when it gets into contact with this gear, for example, the way it is activated is that the teeth gets inside of this holes in the gear and starts moving it. But if they get worn out with time, they start slipping out, and the car stops as soon as it gets into difficult terrain, because now you have to exert more power and it slides out. As the only thing that's keeping it in its place is this spring. The springs needs to be in perfect condition, and this gear should not be sliding out. So what you do is take a sanding file, and start sanding it. Sand it in the way that this edge becomes 90 degrees to this surface here. So after you sand it, like this, the problem should disappear. That's what I did for my car. After cleaning it out, it seemed to work fine, but then after the car got into difficult terrain a few times, the gears started to slip out again. You do it for both sides, because there are two gears that are engaged, the high and low speed gears, so they have the same spaces inside, and once you sand it, it starts working fine. So this is the piece you need to sand.